Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, and in this RetroGamingTech.com video, we're going to be discussing as well as analysing tech news, which as usual has popped up the past 24 or so hours. Hopefully, you're having an amazing day. We have lots of stuff to get through in this video. Most of it is going to be console related, unsurprising, given Sony's final reveal of the PlayStation 5 hardware and lots of games as well, so we'll get to that in a moment. But I'd like to start things out with Intel and Jim Keller, as he's actually departing Intel. Now, he's actually been working at Intel for about 2 years now, but effective immediately, he's actually departing Intel. And this is apparently due to personal reasons. This is all thanks to the Intel newsroom. I'll link it, of course, in the description. Now, this seems to be an amicable departure, and Jim is still going to be kind of serving as a consultant for the next half a year, 6 months, which will, of course, ease the transition. Now, the personal reasons, for, well, obvious reasons, are not listed. So I hope it's nothing serious like, he's sick or family members sick or anything like that. I'm hoping it's just something like he wants to spend more time with his family or wife or whomever. And I do hope, obviously, everything's fine with him. Now, in terms of what this means for Intel, there are some pretty big shakeups in terms of the actual management of the teams now, and you can read them on screen yourself rather than me read out a whole bunch of stuff. But long story short, Intel is still going to be in pretty good shape. And when it comes to what products Jim has been working on, well, it's very difficult to know, because obviously what exactly someone's doing at a company for, well, NDA reasons is not exactly public knowledge, but what we do know is that the architectures generally take 3 to 5 years minimum to come out after they obviously initial work has started. So possibly Jim could have worked on Golden Cove, but most likely Ocean Cove is what he spent the majority of his time focused on. And we do know, of course, that before Intel, he was working at several different companies. He was working at Tesla for a while, and he was also of critical importance at AMD. He did kind of contribute towards the Zen microarchitecture, obviously, with his tenure at the company. But long story short, when people say that Jim is a rock star, they are not saying that lightly. He's a very knowledgeable guy, very cool individual. I've met him once. I've had the pleasure of meeting him at GDC last year, and I got to speaking to him a little bit formally off the camera. And he and I spent, I don't know, like 20 minutes or so just talking about powerlifting and stuff, which was really fun. Really cool guy. And I hope everything's okay with him. And, good luck to him in his future endeavours. But shifting from Jim Keller, let's, talk about Jim Ryan, because he recently had an interview with the BBC. Now, I will say that the interview is not exactly super duper detailed, but there are some interesting things here for the PlayStation 5. Jim Ryan, for those who don't know, he is, of course, Sony Interactive Entertainment's head, and he believes that the PlayStation 5 is a paradigm shift, and this is thanks to several features, including controller haptics and 3D audio. I'm going to read this out verbatim. We think 3D audio is a paradigm shift. We think the functionality of the new controller, which again has to be experienced to be fully appreciated, is a paradigm shift. We think the SSD storage mechanism, the way that it can actually help you move between worlds and games and eliminate loading times, is a paradigm shift. I guess it is PlayStation, PS, paradigm shift. Kind of works, I guess. We went to great lengths to show that off in considerable length in the Ratchet and Clank demo. You saw the way that Ratchet was moving world to world. In a previous generation, the character would need to walk down a corridor while the loading was going on in the background. Now it just happens instantaneously. I know in previous generations they've tended to be about better graphics, but, greater grunt in the CPU. We think we've got a number of features here that are going to enhance the sensory experience in games and allow developers to do really cool and different things. In case you missed it, this is obviously out of quote, Amy and I actually did kind of a breakdown of some of the stuff from the Sony event yesterday, and I was actually talking about the whole Ratchet and Clank thing, and it was obvious that they put that in kind of early in the demo to show that the amount of data that was being thrown around was just it actually, for a second, I honestly was in kind of shock, because the quantity of data being thrown around is just, it's profound, because it's not just that the system has time to load it in, like it doesn't, because you could take any portal at any time. So, for example, if you could just stand in front of the portal and then go in at the very last second, or you could go in immediately, or you could go into a different portal, presumably, and end up in a different world. So that right there means that the system can't even like cache loads of data previously, because it doesn't know what you're going to be doing and where you're going to be going. To me, that was really impressive. I think that what Sony's shown off is going to be a nice taste of what we get for the next generation. I do believe that Microsoft are going to do a really good job with their upcoming event as well. We're probably going to get a much better fundamental understanding of what the what the Xbox is capable of. So I'm really interested to see what the next generation can bring to the table, because obviously there is lots of focus at the moment on like the graphics capabilities of the machines, which is important. I don't think anyone would want to play at 720p 30 FPS. Obviously, I'm being a bit silly for the next generation, but I also believe that how we actually interact with the medium is just as important. And this might sound a bit silly, but there were some advantages with Nintendo with the N64. Obviously, it did kick them in the shin because Sony, for example, snapped up Final Fantasy VII, and I don't blame Square Enix for doing that, for going with Nintendo, but the cartridge format did have some major advantages, and obviously those were primarily loading times and data access times. Well, this of course was even back in the days with like the Genesis or the Super Nintendo. So being able to access data so quickly has so many awesome advantages, and I believe that the SSDs in the next generation are, and I don't like to use this term because it's so overused, but it really will be a bit of a game changer, at least in my opinion. And shifting from Sony, we actually have some stuff for the Xbox Series X, which is also, funnily enough, from the BBC. They managed to grab an interview with Phil Spencer. I don't think he needs much of an introduction. And, well, just to be clear, he is, of course, the Xbox chief. And there were some very interesting things that Phil was asked, primarily regarding, obviously, the plans of the system, so we don't get, like, in-depth information about the tech specs or anything like that. But he was asked how the current world events have been impacting the launch, and he said that while we were starting to deal with people work from home, there were questions about supply chain, but in terms of how they are now, hardware production, he feels really good. We have test kits at home and we're using them, and he also believes that they've made excellent progress in the software platform as well, and they feel that things are largely not going to be a problem for the launch of the system. Another thing that Phil was asked is about pricing. Won't gamers take into account the console will be at its most expensive at launch? And Phil responds, people find real value in investment that they make in gaming. You can buy a console, buy some games, and it can provide literally hundreds of hours of entertainment for your family. Even when we're back and looked in 2008, 2009 in that recession, to see what the impact was in gaming. Gaming did okay. It was durable. We want to make sure that we're providing the right value to customers. And of course, pricing is important. But our strategy is centered around the player, not the device. If this is not the year when your family wants to make a decision to buy a new Xbox, that's okay. Our strategy does not revolve around how many Xboxes I sell this year. We're focused on delivering services through Game Pass, which allow people to build their library up for a monthly fee. Backwards compatibility means the console you can still have will play thousands and thousands of games. Smart delivery means that when you move to the next generation, the games will move with them. Spencer also mentions just how important he believes the gaming has been in terms of how people have coped during the current world events. And obviously, since so many people are either working from home or on like furlough or what have you, I think it's really awesome to actually have something to kind of keep your mind occupied and to also have some means to communicate and interact with people. So, for example, if you've got like I don't know, like an online co-op game like Streets of Rage 4, for example, has been a pretty good example. You can put that on with your friend and just kind of beat things up as you're just playing, and it's a great stress relief, but you also get the fun of being able to communicate with someone that you care about as well. So I think gaming, as Phil said, is definitely extremely robust in that aspect. I was actually replaying a couple of the older Halo games recently, the campaign mode and Final Fantasy VII, and to be honest with you, they have helped me a lot in terms of when I've been stressed out or just kind of need to disappear from the world for a while. And back in like 2007, my dad passed away, um, and it was kind of a death that wasn't expected, to be honest with you. And I won't even lie to you guys. Like for quite a while, World of Warcraft was it was really important to me to be able to communicate with friends and stuff because I had several friends that were playing it like in real life, and so I kind of threw myself into it. And for several months, it really helped me to just be able to kind of forget the world for a while, come home from work, jump into a different life for a while, and kind of just work through my problems. And yeah, obviously it's still important to make sure you have real life contact, definitely, but sometimes it is just so nice to disappear into a game. Let me know how gaming's helped you over the past several months in the comments below. And I will now finish off with something that was a couple of days ago, actually. A number of you actually messaged me about this, and it's to do with Dirt 5 on the Xbox Series X. Um, I won't lie, I missed it to begin with, and then obviously yesterday, which was the 11th, if you're watching this into the far-flung future, so a day after, which was the PlayStation 5 reveal, it just kind of felt like, yeah, I just kind of felt that this would get lost in all of the PS5 stuff, so I wanted to spend a moment to discuss this, though, as the Dirt developers were discussing the Xbox Series X hardware, and they once again doubled down on the fact that it's going to be running at 120 frames a second. It's an option, of course, but they also said that Dirt 5 is a social experience. I can't wait to see beautiful screenshots from users who posted on Xbox and social media. There's a new share function on Xbox Series X controller, captured using our fantastic photo mode. I'm really looking forward to seeing all the pictures and all the lighting. Those shots are going to look incredible on the Xbox Series X. Its RDNA 2 GPU is going to enable us to turn all the features up to 11. And there are extremely talented game photographers out there. I'll be keeping my eye out. It was also asked, what do you get out of the next generation console, and what do they believe that they're most likely looking forward, to exploring in terms of the features of the Xbox. And unsurprisingly, the two biggest were the SSD and the ray tracing capabilities of the GPU, combined with the power of the CPU as well. The CPU was very powerful. Its simultaneously multi-threading is also very impressive. We're used to dealing with the concept of running multiple threads on a PC CPU cores and sharing the resources of that processor across multiple threads, but actually, the SMT in the Series X is far more capable than usual CPUs. We found out that Dirt Engine was able to make use of this and sprang to life, across the 16 hardware threads available to us on the Series X. Now, I find that extremely interesting. I would like for a deeper dive, which fortunately we're going to have hot chips. Now, I know there's customization on the CPU of the PlayStation 5 as well as the Xbox Series X. As regular viewers know, I'm not so familiar with the Xbox Series X in terms of like behind the scenes stuff, as most of the info I've received, unfortunately, is for the PlayStation 5. I'd love for more info on the Xbox, but I've only received a little bit. However, it does sound to me like there are some tweaks that I've gone into the hardware to make it so that the CPU is better at multi-threading with this, but I would be curious on exactly how that functions. And He was also asked, what's it like developing on the Xbox? Transitioning development to a new console platform like the Series X is usually very painful. You have to deal with new tools, new workflows, new ways of thinking. This time around, the team at Xbox bought me a new tool set called the Game Development Kit, which I already had up and running on the Xbox One. This meant that we could make the transition much earlier. In fact, we started doing the groundwork for the Series X development long before we even received the hardware. This kind of thinking from Xbox allows us to get a real start on the next generation development, so after receiving our early Xbox Series X hardware, we were up and running really quickly. For me, what's most important in making video games is the relationship with the Xbox team. The team at Xbox is committed to helping us make great video games. I will say that what I am hearing about the Xbox is that first of all, there's a few things. One, the development toolkit is a lot better compared to, especially kind of the early to mid generation of the Xbox One. With the development kit, I've heard that Microsoft have done a lot in terms of making it way easier to develop for on the Xbox, but also that the OS itself is considerably smoother. And this has been a particular problem, which, to my understanding, the beta dashboard has done a lot to address. And that is, of course, for the Xbox One. So it's definitely great that Microsoft have made these strides for the next generation. Anyway, I think that's just about it for this particular video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you did, normal stuff, like, share, comment, and definitely subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.